Being that it's 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or corrections to that? Understand somebody from Brad Finston's office is here. Is that you? Okay. Would you want to have, be under the appointment, just to give a brief?
It's whatever works best for you guys.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to talk or say something, and we'll do that at the appointment section here. All right, thank you. Anything else? Is there more?
Motion to approve agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Approval of previous board minutes from May 27th. Any additions or corrections to those? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Now we'll have public comment. Is there anybody would like to make a public comment? This is your chance. Come forward. State your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name
You
is,
can sit down here if you'd like.
I don't really want to, but okay. Hi, I'm Robin Danielson. I'm here at the request of my husband, myself, and Brian Forsythe. We would like to request the board or the board's attorney to come to a special meeting on this Thursday at 5 PM in Money Creek regarding the vacation of an alley. This was a 20-foot alley that 48 years ago at least, they vacated the north half of it, and it was conveyed, recorded at the auditor's and the conveyor's office in Caledonia here. And the property owners have been paying the taxes for the 48-plus years. There was an issue recently where it came up where they're going to close the entire alley now, the last 10 feet of it. But the township lost their records because they had a fire. And so they were supposed to be paying their attorney to trace the records. And now when we got the paperwork for this meeting, he told me that they decided they're not going to pay that. Well, that's fine, but if this is more than a formality and they're going to negate, which according to the ordinance, the failure to file the notice to vacate the alley does not invalidate the vacation proceedings, per the ordinance, if they just ignore that they did that 48 years ago, guess who now has to pay the trace and pay 48 years of back taxes to the property owners? But you also get to charge them 48 years of taxes with penalties. So it's up to you, but we would like you to come to the meeting because we would like it done properly and correctly this time. I do have paperwork to show some of this if I can.
Sure.
Report you and give it to you. I don't have enough copies because we only have 3 guys or 4 guys. Okay, so that's our notice. This is a copy of the ordinance, which I underlined the statement, and I'm sorry I skipped you. I'm used to my secretary sitting there. Okay, and then this is a copy of, it's Kenneth and Dorothy Chapel and Victor and Paula from
Yep.
decades ago.
Yep.
That it has the conveyance on their deed, and it's recorded, and it's also on our deed and recorded. And then this is where Beacon, I know is not a,
Legal.
right, okay, but it does show the 20-foot versus the 10-foot. This is C-Camps, this is us, this is Brian Forsythe, and then the other 2 properties. Here is a retaining wall, which I have on this, which shows the grass alley landmarks. There's a retaining wall that David and Mavis attended the meetings. She's still alive, he's passed. And David put in the retaining wall at the end there for a landmark, and then they put in lilacs, and we had a little pine tree. And then Brian's fence and property is right on the property line. So that is closer than this picture to actually where that property line is.
So
But you
what-
can see on this side, it's still 20 foot, and on this side, it's 10 foot.
Okay,
And it's been recognized by the county when they seal coated this driveway or whatever, because this is actually county road to here, to Summer. They stop here, and C-Camps had to pay for the rest of it going this way.
so we're vacating this portion of
Yep,
this?
that last 10 feet, but they lost their records in the fire because they kept the records at one of the commissioners' house, or the guy's houses, and it burnt down. So they don't have them, and they don't want to pay the attorney, he told me when he came to serve us that notice. So I don't know, they won't give us an answer. We've
Is
asked
this
several
the
times.
township?
The township
Okay.
board, yeah, so we don't know if they're just like playing that it never happened when there's two people, Brian and Mavis, that are still alive and attended the meeting. But that's the 10-foot and 20-foot alley, how it shows on Deacon that it was vacated, and then that's the landmarks, which is, a grass alley is designated by landmarks. The pine tree is missing, we had cut it down, but 10 years ago, when the same alley had an issue and we went to the board with all this paperwork, the people had fenced in our yard in the alley, and they dug up the stump. So, so our landmark's missing, but you can still go 10 feet off of Brian's fence.
All right,
But again, I did underline here on this ordinance too, that failure to file, because everything, it was recorded all to that very last step where they didn't go to the assessor's office or whatever. But apparently it was enough that it got on the county records because it's been recognized by the county as the property line for those 48 plus years.
okay.
So we're just concerned that it's going to get done improperly a second time. And again, my husband's very upset that he pays a lot of taxes and he's not gonna just say okey dokey. He wants a tax refund if they don't do this properly. It should be nothing more than a formality. They should pay their attorney to trace those records. I've gone back 48 years for him. I've done half, if not 90% of the work.
Okay,
So we're just asking that it be done correctly, and we'd appreciate it if, it's a special meeting at 5 PM. I think it's all in that slip I gave you, I'm
Yep,
not sure.
yep.
Okay,
I'll make it a point to show up for that.
all right, thank you. And then, again, you might want to clue your attorney what's going on, because it's going to cost you guys a lot of money if they don't do it right.
Okay,
Thank you.
yep. Anybody else for a public comment? All right. Now we'll have appointments. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Natasha Young-Ray. I'm a district outreach representative for Congressman Brad Fidstad. I'm a bit newer to my role.
Okay.
So I'm just going to different counties and meeting the commissioners and just gonna give you my cards if you guys ever need anything.
Okay.
Or anything
Okay.
like that. We're just let you know, put a face to the name if you ever need to reach out.
Well, welcome to Houston County.
Thank you. This is my first time in Houston County, so it was a beautiful drive,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So I know it's, I don't have a lot of questions, but I mean, you hear in the news about all things that are being discussed. And it's, nothing's finalized yet,
correct. Yep,
big beautiful bill,
yes.
right? And when's that coming up, the end of the year or end of the July?
I believe they are trying to get it done by July because the budget ends September 30th.
Yep,
So
all right,
we have to wait for it's back in the Senate right now, then they're gonna send it back to us and we'll see what changes they've made to it.
right, it's, okay, yep.
So nothing's finalized, but it did pass the House as it was.
Yep, I know, at AMC yesterday, we had our District 9 meeting and we had some discussion on some of the federal policies that are coming down, and so we'll see what the Senate does with it.
Yes, yep, and if there's any questions or if you're seeing any issues with anything, reach out to our office. We're more than happy to get you answers on your questions that you have.
All right,
That's great.
good
Thank you.
enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're also going to be at the public library from 11 to,
Yes, I will be at the public library from 11 to 1. I'm doing mobile office hours. If you know anyone who's having any troubles with any federal agencies, I'm there to help them with the process and help them
Okay,
hopefully find an answer to how they can get it fixed.
all right,
Here?
Yes,
Here.
yep.
Okay.
okay,
I will give you my card.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. right, moving on to the consent agenda. There is 6 items on the consent agenda. Any questions on that? There's some banding changes on 2, 3, and 4, 5.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to action items. Consider approving 2025 tax abatement for Leonard Weiser, Luke Onstead.
So this one, Jake and Holly were in and had applied for an abatement. There was some questions, or they had said that they didn't feel like the property should be commercial classed. And some changes on, they have a church down there and things like that that they didn't feel like should be commercial, so we did go look at it, talked to him quite a bit about it. I guess we had kind of agreed with them that, you know, maybe the whole property wasn't being used as commercial and everything when they were in. The main reason that I brought it to the board, I guess, is because after they were in, there was an article that came out in the paper that basically says the opposite of everything that we talked about. They had said they had 10 campsites, and the paper says they have 75, and it's used for,
75 campsites?
yeah, that's what, I just was reading it this morning again. It says there's 75 campsites, and the venue is furnished with sleeping quarters and prep stations, and 75 campsites and 3 cabins. So I guess I don't know that the property isn't used as commercial.
So
But-
what are we talking about? Just, is there certain parts of the property here? or-
Yeah, so we had, most of the open area kind of behind the house as commercial for the campsites.
Yeah,
There was 10 acres, I believe, and then we had changed it to just 10 campsites and changed the rest of it back to agriculture. But in reality, it's actually campsites, so it probably should remain commercial.
Are you talking about when you pull into the property, to the left is the wedding venue? Straight ahead, there's some cabins and a circle of campsites.
Yep, and the
There's
campsites.
campsites down here,
Yep,
and then past the venue, there's a bunch of campsites to the back,
yep,
which would probably equate to about 75 campsites.
yep, it's quite a few. So.
Plus the 3 cabins.
Yep, and the cabins said weren't being rented or used for that, but apparently they are. So.
And it also mentions on the application that the house is on the wrong parcel.
Yep, so that one, that is, the house was valued on one parcel that the cabins were on. And then years ago, it had gotten moved over apparently to the correct parcel, but they never took it off of the other parcel, so that part is a correction that needs to be
Okay.
made. But that doesn't amount to that much.
Yeah.
The biggest, change would be if the commercial change and the use of the property would amount to pretty significant, tax abatement. But that, it would be over the $3,000, so it'd be a board decision, so that's why I'm here with it. If the board wants to approve the abatement, then I guess we would move forward with it and give them the abatement and make the changes.
So all these corrections, Luke, can be made. It mentions the building square foot was incorrect for upper level. So you've reviewed all those?
So that was the upper level square foot, that's the movie theater one in Spring Grove. So that's,
Oh.
that's
Oh,
the,
okay.
that's the next one.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
So this one is just the,
This one's mostly for use of the building, so there's
Okay.
one big building where they have the wedding venue with the reception area, and then there's another part of the building that, said wasn't used for the business, it was just for storage, but again, then when the paper came out, it showed that the whole building was available.
Are you referring to the church?
No, not the church,
Separate building.
Okay,
the separate building,
other building.
the church, that was in there as commercial, or valued as commercial, but it wasn't taxed as commercial. And that was the biggest concern on that. The only way we can value churches is under the commercial tab, but they're taxed residential.
Okay.
So that wasn't really incorrect. It was just how it showed on Beacon. It showed that it was commercial
Okay,
valued, but it wasn't taxed that way.
so that's not in here, that's not an issue.
That we've just reviewed it and it's not taxed as commercial, so.
Okay.
So I guess really, I don't know a whole lot more than that, other than, my plan was to come here and ask for the abatement and then with the new info, I guess.
So do you recommend the abatement? You don't,
No.
the way I understand it.
No, I guess I do not. But it is the board's decision because of the value of the abatement.
You've been on site to see the
Yep,
discrepancies.
yep,
I think it should be taxed and assessed the way it is. I mean, it is what it is. It's your job to make sure of that.
Especially if it was in the paper.
Right? Well,
yeah, that was the biggest, discrepancy or issue.
Kind of confirms.
do you think you need to reassess it at all or look?
We've been down there a few times, so I think the assessment is correct. Just, the house being moved, I believe the house was moved to the correct parcel, I think it was in 2016. And it was caught then last year when we did reappraisals of everything that it was on the wrong parcel. So that we corrected and we can do the abatement for that. That isn't that big of a abatement, but. So I guess I just ask if you guys want to approve this one or not.
The action item is to approve the tax abatement.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because my job is when somebody applies for abatement, I'm required to bring it to you guys and ask for your approval. When it's over $3,000, I can't approve it myself.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, I didn't, I don't know if I approved it at the time, but then that came out afterwards, so.
With the information you provided, I don't believe you did.
No, I trust, your professional opinion on.
100% more than
Yeah.
10 sites down there.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a motion that we agree with what your assessment is for this, and
Well, we need to make a,
support?
Yeah, motion to
Do we
approve
need
or
a
deny
motion
the
to approve
abatement.
the
yeah.
abatement?
right,
Or not?
And we can,
or not to approve, I guess.
Or not.
Yeah, basically, I guess the motion would be, it's either approve or not. Like I said, I technically have approved it, and then info came out afterwards. I can't really change my approval from when I approved it. But it's a 3-step process. I approve it, the county auditor approves it, and then the board needs to approve it. So, at
so if the
at
board
any,
does not approve it,
then it's,
it's null and void.
yep. So at any step, if it's not approved, it's null and void. So. There is some changes that will be made other than this abatement, like the house and those things.
It should be changed.
Yes.
The corrections that
That'll,
you're making.
that'll continue.
Yep, that'll be corrected and, it's already been corrected and continue that way.
So what paper was that in?
The Caledonia Argus.
Oh.
I have a copy.
All right.
Andy.
Well, do we have a motion to approve the tax payment? Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? Is how we don't have a motion. Can't approve it.
Yeah.
All right.
I believe the next thing is-
Next one, consider approving 2025 tax abatement for Real Haven LLC Spring Grove Cinema.
Yep, so this one also is a little unique. So we did have a little bit of incorrect square footage on the upstairs area. It wasn't it wasn't a significant amount, but it was some. The biggest issue is, the new owner bought the property in December. The the valuation statements went out last spring. The truth and taxation statements came out in November stating what the tax would be. It was changing basically from 6,000 to 15,000 based on the assessment. There was a location adjustment that had been removed on the property. Most properties in Spring Grove had that removed a year or so ago. And I guess the biggest issue is the new owner did not know this information because they weren't given this information in December when they purchased the property. So that's the reason they've applied for the abatement. The small upstairs square footage, which, you know, would amount to maybe, I guess I didn't calculate exactly, but it was, you know, less than $1,000 for that abatement. The majority of the abatement is based on that location change, which that isn't something that I can change or I can abate. That would be the county's decision. And it is based on basically the new owner not being informed, which that is somewhat between the buyer and the seller as well, but.
Well, that's why are we
Cause,
being held responsible for that when it's between the seller and the buyer?
they applied for an abatement and I have to bring abatements.
Yeah.
Once again, it's the amount of the amount of it, that's why we're looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, quite significant. It's over $10,000.
Should it be changed?
Yes, the location adjustment should not have been removed. That was removed from all the properties in Spring Grove a couple years ago, by an appraiser in the office. That shouldn't have been. I wasn't informed of it. I didn't catch it. And so there was a few of them that came off of. That I believe that adjustment was legitimate. I mean, a movie theater in Spring Grove is not going to be as productive as a movie theater in a bigger city. That was the reason that it had the adjustment on it, along with some other businesses in Spring Grove.
Is it your recommendation for this abatement?
I would recommend this abatement, yes, based on the new buyer not having the information and not having the opportunity to go through the appeal process when he purchased the property.
What is the upstairs used for?
Currently it's fixed up as kind of a meeting area or youth area. There's some study areas, some computers, there's a gaming room and just kind of like a meeting hangout room. It's fixed up very nice upstairs, and then,
Benefits the youth of Spring Grove
Yep.
and the surrounding area.
yes, it's very nice. He's done a really good job. There is, the main square footage difference was we had, so in a movie theater, the production area, basically where they play the movies and store all that, that is figured into the value of a movie theater pricing, and that had been broken out and basically valued twice. It was being valued as a room, plus it's already valued as a production area under the movie theater classification.
So you'll make that correction.
Yes, that correction we've been made, and like that, you know, that amount was less, probably less than $1,000, but in value, which, you know, is not very much in tax.
Listen to what
maybe
you have to
$100.
say, Luke. I'd make a motion to approve this abatement for Real Haven LLC in Spring Grove.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any further discussion?
This brings it in the line with the way it should be and the way that the use is. For compliance, so to speak.
Yeah, it's correct, and I mean, I've put that location adjustment back on going forward for a few businesses in Spring Grove, because,
So are the other business been corrected too then, or
yeah, the other ones have been corrected. There is a,
those are probably smaller abatements?
yes, they're quite smaller. There is a couple, or one for sure, that I'll probably bring to the board once I get the paperwork back, but it's
This process.
minimal compared to this. So,
Good, thank you for your work on that.
Any further discussion? If not, is there, no. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Number 3, considering approving quote to install and program 2 automatic door operators, actuators, transmitter, and receiver in an amount of $8,625 plus electrical wiring by others. This is for the highway building?
This is for the highway building here in Caledonia. So back when the new building was being designed, we asked the question on do we need to have automatic door openers on the building when it got built? And the response we heard at that time is within Minnesota, it is not a requirement for our building. We have to have handicap parking stalls, the handicap ramps going into the building, but the doors themselves did not need to have automatic openers. Been heard or found out since that time that in 2022, I believe the requirements changed within Minnesota. So if a new building got built now that serves the public, it would have to have automatic door openers. So anyway, so we think that our building was in compliance when it got built by not having them, but we have heard a little bit of input on, should we have, some door openers, and we've made some changes on the front with some, rug that was catching the door and stuff, so the door is open and close better now than it was before. So, went out and got, quote to get the doors updated, and essentially what it is you mount a push button on a wall. It's wireless transmitters, so you don't need to have a wire to it. They have batteries inside the transmitter that goes onto the wall, and then they need to put the automatic door openers on the top of the doorway, and then run an electric line over to that location. So to do this, to make both doors activated, it's about $8,600 for the doors themselves, plus we need to get it wired, which I'm estimating another $1,500 to $2,000. So we haven't had someone over to actually give us a formal quote on the wiring of that, but that should be pretty close on the actual cost. So ultimately, it's a little over $10,000. We can have our building where it's fully compliant with the ADA as far as access. Like when Commissioner Myrie comes over for a meeting and stuff, we're usually there to help open the doors up and get him in. So he said, it really hasn't affected him, but he understands too that it could impact other people and stuff. So put together the cost, figured come to the board today and see if you want to make a decision today or not.
So would this, you'd have to push a button, or it would be automatic when it sees you coming?
It'll be a push button activated.
It
So
will still be able to use it manually?
yes, yep. So most people use it manually. Just pull it. The button will be
You
mounted on.
wanted to use you just push the button to get it to open? Okay.
It's
That would put us in
accessible.
compliance with EDA.
Yeah, it's
That's
accessible
fully
then.
fully compliant with ADA. Yes.
And if we wouldn't do it and there was an issue, That's liability on us.
Because our building was built prior to the regulations in place, we're probably fine that way. Because, you know, we're in compliance. Usually, when you modify a building, then you're required to bring yourself fully into compliance. But as long as we don't modify our building, we're good that way. Now, if we had an employee that got injured that needs to have special accommodations to get in, at that point, we may be forced to do this type of thing at that time point anyway. So it at some point, we could be forced into it. At this point, I don't think that we're actually required to add something, but to serve the public for a building like ours, you know, I'm not gonna say it's a bad idea to,
And this is just for the north door.
this just for the, yes, on the north side, the main public entrance.
Is there room in your budget?
You know, overall, it's not a huge dollar amount when you look at the size of our budget. So do we have, you know, did we budget for this specifically? No. Are we gonna probably be able to find something throughout the year to accommodate this within our budget? Or, you know, our fund balances in the, you know, millions, we can find something to cover this. And I guess I haven't spoke with Carol about this directly, but, you know, overall, it's a fairly small dollar.
A lot of the stuff in your budget, you're basically saying that this would probably prioritize over some other smaller things, your perspective.
We'll actually review some of the effects of the budget changes that they made based on the additional money they have and the changes in the wage and salary and benefits. So we'll go through that later, and that will basically answer your question then.
Because we do have some extra room there.
Yeah, we have an employee that the position was not filled, so we had a vacancy this entire year so far, plus we're down a mechanic right now, so we're saving money there too, so if you look at on the salary side, we're gonna be quite a bit under this year over the original budgeted amount.
I think it's important to accommodate our citizens of our communities
Yep.
as well as the county. I'd make a motion to approve this.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Probably a good consideration for any construction if we ever have to do that going forward, because
Oh, we
it's just
we
a,
did it here to the west door
Right.
too, so.
yeah, I mean, it's just a good idea. It's more expensive probably to install later.
Number 4, consider discussing possible action on adding a flagpole to the highway department.
Yeah, so at the highway department, at one point in time, we did have a flagpole. That pole was moved over to the Meyer building when the county bought that and the Veteran Services went out there. The county board at that time, had some discussion and figured that was a better location to have a flagpole than at the highway shop. So since that time, there's been additional discussion brought up. And I have spoke with Commissioner Myrie about this too, after we, put together some costs on what it would cost to do this. The cost is essentially to put a flagpole up there that's commercial grade flagpole, have lighting, which is required to have on a flag that's gonna be up there at night. Run the electric out there to it. We do have conduit underneath our pavement, so there's no pavement torn up, but it does require new electrical lines to be ran through that conduit. A little bit of concrete, you know, and purchasing the flags and everything. Total, the cost for the initial year is about $5,000. Future years, probably about $250 worth of flags and electricity for it. So, not a huge amount of cost for ongoing expenses, but that initial cost is $5,000. Wanted to kind of bring that up today. I guess I can leave it at that. If you want to know what Commissioner Myrie told me, I can pass that on to you as well, but I can.
How tall was this flagpole?
A 25-foot commercial grade flagpole runs roughly $1,500 to $2,000. So you can look at a lower grade flagpole, but they're not designed for the wind load. So then maybe you start looking at a 3x5 flag instead of a 4x6, and then you hope that you don't have it snap or bend with the wind.
About a Camping World size flag.
That's what I thought we were gonna do.
Bigger than the building?
Suppose that'd be a little more.
Yes.
So then electrical and light installation, all of that, in addition, would bring it up to about $5,000.
All of that combined is about 5,000.
Right.
What's that?
The pole's 190 feet tall.
On what?
the camping rule.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. We probably have to get FAA
Yeah. Don't wanna interfere with the
permit
airport.
for that, yeah.
As a veteran, I'm about flying our pride. So I am definitely not opposed to this. I think we should have one there.
Once again, budget, as far as putting it in the budget.
Yeah, same as for the last item, it wasn't budgeted, but, again, it is a relatively small dollar amount, so.
And you might get 2 years out of a flag. Depends on the wind.
Usually we're replacing flags about every 6 months.
Right now you are?
Yes, so at the Meyer Building, at the courthouse complex here, the flags are always swapped out every 2 months, so usually every spring and every fall.
Because of the wind. Perfect.
Maybe the federal government will start paying for that.
I kinda doubt that.
Jeez, a solid effort on your part. Good thinking.
They're broke, so.
Never know, never know. Different expense. Not even gonna get into that, but
No, that
anyway.
was just my personal opinion, but a motion can be made if you would like, Bob.
Well, is there a motion to approve of the flagpole out at the county highway building?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second to that?
Second. I feel like I need to break into song here, cause it's doing that.
So you got a good spot there, that little, it's kind of an island.
Yeah, we'll find a spot out there in the middle of that grass area.
I think that'd make a good spot.
Yeah, it would. Nice.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Could I bring up one additional item on the flag discussion? And so it got brought up here just a little bit ago about the Minnesota state flag that we have flying up next to the courthouse here. So Minnesota State changed their state flag on officially May 11th of 2024. So it's been a little over a year that they changed from the old flag to the new flag. I know the county board last fall, I believe, sent a letter to the state, or maybe it was last summer, having requesting the state to reconsider the changing of the flag. Ultimately, the state has said that they're going to stick with the new flag. We don't have a spare flag in inventory now, and we're looking at, do we buy the new flag or do we buy the old version of the flag still? So, like I said, the official state flag is now changed. It's been changed over a year. So, but there was some a letter that went to the state looking at, trying to get the state to keep the old flag. So before we order a new flag or a flag in general, wanted to know if the board has any input on what type of flag.
When we had this discussion about the flag issue, we were told by AMC that we did not have to comply. We're not required to fly the flag. It's only the state offices and the courthouse.
Yeah, I don't believe we're required to fly a flag at all.
Right. So I have my personal opinion on this. I'd rather just keep flying the old flag. I understand the new flag is the new flag. I disagree with how that came about. It was only selected by 13 people, and the governor adopted this new flag without any public input, any public voice. There was no vote. The legislature to confirm this, they just let it go. So I feel she should just keep flying the old flag, but that's just my opinion.
So back to your comment about we don't need to fly the flag at all, or don't need to have the flag at that location, right?
I don't believe that there's.
We're talking here at the
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah, I
just
don't believe
mentioned
there's
that.
I don't
Yeah.
believe there is a requirement that a county office
Not a
needs to fly
requirement.
any flag, a state flag or the federal flag. But we do, we have the post out there, so if we're gonna keep flying the flag, which one should we put out there?
Is the old flag available?
Yeah.
You can buy both.
Old flag?
Yep, it's getting tougher to find good quality old flags, but they're definitely out there. You you can buy either one.
They're actually selling more than the new flag, so.
True.
How about that?
I'm of the opinion that we would fly the old flag also.
Yeah, I think that's what we just wanted to do. I mean, there was a concern that it was gonna cost us a bunch of money. Well, then they reassured us that, oh, no, you guys don't have to comply with the new flag orders, so.
Well, if it's not required,
We can still fly the old flag. It's not outlawed. So, in my opinion, let's just keep flying what we're flying.
I'm fine with neither. If it's a cost issue, yeah, I don't. Personally, I don't think personal opinions, should enter into that, but I agree that sometimes I think that how the situation came about and that it was a controversy within a lot of areas throughout the state for a while made it an issue, which is unfortunate. But also, I don't like the idea of change for change's sake, without a purpose. So what do you want to do?
Well, it's not on the agenda for an action. Here's just a suggestion. I've gave my suggestion.
Mine also.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
That's an answer in itself.
Number 5, consider approving fund transfer from the county revenue fund to the EDA fund as required for reporting. EDA loan balance available funds as of 2025-05, $378,192.09, plus interest of $9,836.23.
All right, so at the end of December, I had requested that we establish an EDA fund to be used for recording the EDA loans. This came about with our 2022 audit, where it was determined that because we have an EDA authority and the amount of the loans that we have out and the money that we received, it's no longer considered immaterial and able to be combined with our general funds. So I requested that you establish that fund because we have to do that prior to the start of the year. So now what we're doing is taking the cash, or it's actually in an investment, but we'll cash it, and moving it from the general fund to a specific EDA fund so that we can track the expenditures and revenues, loan payments and things separately like we need to because it's material. So this is transferring,
And this would be 100% earmarked EDA.
yes. I mean, we have it earmarked as EDA right now, but it's mixed in with the general fund and it needs to be
So
separate.
you're just cleaning it up, what you're doing. I'll make a motion to approve that
Fund transfer,
fund transfer.
okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 6, consider approving 2025 budget amendments. Carol sent out a sheet here of all the amendments.
All right, so the first section shows wage, salary, and benefit adjustments by department. We don't display single line item changes, just so that if there's changes in health benefits and stuff that we're not in violation, like say of a HIPAA law. So this goes by department, the amount that the budget the amendment column, either it increased or it decreased. You can see that in personnel, there was the biggest decrease. The attorney, of course, had an increase with the additional position. Zoning, it was just a reallocation kind of between the departments That's why there was the increase there. I will send you a PDF that shows each of the line items, just separately. So the total for general revenue is an increase of $74,609. Road and Bridge, Sheila had worked the salary budgets on there. I had sent mine and she made corrections to it, so we got it straight. So you can see that their salary budgets actually decreased by $121,500. That's because we didn't replace the one position. And we have, as Brian indicated, a new mechanic being hired. Heidi worked through the allocations of the human services increases, and a lot of that has to do with the positions that were added due to public health. So this shows the changes in the salary budgets. Now, if you move to the next section, there
Can I
is.
stop you there? So in public health, there's an addition of positions. Those positions that we approved, we were gonna get state reimbursement for.
We'll get to that back
All right.
here. Okay, so
Sorry, I
this
should
is
just
only
let you
the
keep going.
salaries. That's why I tried to go fast, so you, so you couldn't do that, but. Okay, so in the next section, it shows revenue and expenditure adjustments, and these are just things along the way that we realize need to be changed. If you look at, like, say, up on the top, there is the salary adjustments for the sheriff, City of Spring Grove. It increases by $35,379, but down here is an increase in the revenue from the City of Spring Grove of $40,728, because there were other expenditures that we hadn't zeroed out that budget at when we adopted the budget, so this makes that budget zero, so that we're not, it's not county funded. There were, between zoning, solid waste, and recycling, there were some changes, some increases in some fees, but we wanted that to be applied to a project with paving down at the Hoka site. So we didn't make the changes right at the end of the year, but it pretty much just balances itself out. It's not an increase in expenditures. So then we go to the Road and Bridge section, and these are the amendments that Sheila and Brian worked on that have to do with the increase in the maintenance money that we were getting and the projects that the board approved, like 15% more in gravel, yeah,
Gravel and striping.
yeah, more gravel and striping, so that nets out to be actually 13,116 additional over that. So then we move to human services, and this basically shows you that the salaries increased by 139,471, but our funding increased by 165,478. So that shows where the state funding comes in to offset those positions that we added. So the total revenue and expenditure adjustments are a decrease of 197,745. If we look at the adjustments, general fund budget increases by 29,226, road and bridge decreases by 108,384, public health and human services decreases by $26,007. The whole net effect on our 2025 budget, we started out with general fund, county revenue having a budget surplus of $21,748. Road and bridge had a zero budget. Public health and human services had a budget deficit of $21,748. With those changes from above, we end up with the general fund having a budget deficit of $7,478. Road and Bridge has a budget surplus of $108,384. Public Health and Human Services has a budget surplus of $4,259. So the $108,384 would be the money that would be used to fund those two projects that you approved with the door and the flag.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Not a lot of wiggle room.
Hmm?
Not a lot of wiggle.
No,
room.
not a lot, you know,
But at least we're ahead.
Right.
so far.
Yeah,
Right,
So
but I
far.
mean, halfway through the year,
Yep.
we're 105, 165 ahead. So we got a little bit of breathing room, and we're not gonna have to figure out where we're gonna come up with extra. So,
Better
So-
direction.
I really wanted to get the salary budgets done as we begin work on next year's budget.
Yeah, we need to delve into that big time.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I did have to do projections for our workers' comp. We have to have that in by like the April, which actually, I guess it was May 15th when I got it in. But they calculate our premium for next year. So we have a basic calculation of the 2026 wages, but we'll have to make some changes.
plus you're gonna have to figure in our contribution for Minnesota State paid leave,
Right.
Yeah.
which is 0.5%, 0.05% contribution.
0.44?
0.44%.
Is it 4.4? I thought it was 5.
It's 0.88 total, but,
0.44.
Better.
I mean,
And I think when I
Still
looked at it,
like
it was like
600.
$50,000,
how much?
54,000 or so,
That'd be more than that.
based on what we pay for. We pay on the same thing that we pay workers' comp on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's better to be ahead at this point because we know that there's gonna be more
Right.
expenses for us.
So we'll get that added in. And we'll have the May reports coming out, and department heads will be directed to start looking at that to see if there are any major items coming up or things that could be changed, decreased.
I would make a motion to approve the 2025 budget amendments as presented.
Is there a second?
second,
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Number 7, consider reviewing and approving the payments. Everybody's had a chance to look at those. Is there any questions on the payments?
No. Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. Administrator updates. Carol, you wanna add anything?
I guess just what we've been looking at is we'll be having the public hearing for adopting the ATV or UTV, that ordinance on the 24th. And right after that, we will also be advertising a public hearing for adopting new fees. One of the fees will be the ATV fee. The board decides to do that, but we also need to adopt the cannabis fees. There were a couple other departments that have fees that they're looking at. Some of them are new, some of them are just adjustments. So we'll be putting together a list that you'll be presented with prior to that public hearing to approve new fees. We actually have to get that in this week, don't we, so that it's advertised for 10? Okay, we'll get that notice ready.
All right.
And I think we said the special vehicles was gonna be at 9:30.
9:30.
But I think Amelia may have an earlier one, so the next one should probably be after 9:30.
What's Amelia's?
I can't remember.
I mean, she did send one for the
Cannabis.
fees,
Okay,
but
so
that's,
maybe-
that's all
That's the same
part,
thing.
that's all going to be part of the other.
Public,
Should be prior to that. Right?
We'll actually do it after,
Yeah.
so
It was
that,
after the UTV.
right, because you have to adopt a new fee for the UTV
Right.
if that's what you're going to do.
If it's
So we'll-
approved, yes.
We'll do it after.
Is the other one already posted though with the time?
I think Brian sent it with 9:30, not the one of Amelia's.
Okay,
That hasn't been sent.
okay. So we should probably tell her to put a later time then.
Well, we're gonna combine it all in one,
Okay,
yeah, one notice for all the new fees,
okay,
and she knows that.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Find some more revenue.
Find some more revenue, yes, yes. Show me the money. I get told that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Board updates, I was at the District 9 meeting yesterday in Lake City. Cindy was also there. AMC did a presentation on budget talks. They haven't done a special session yet, but, they've got to see the spreadsheet, so they've seen the numbers. It doesn't look as bad as what they first were looking at as far as cost shifts to the counties. But then there is no language yet either. They haven't seen the language, so that's kind of important to see what is in the language. It was a fairly in-depth discussion on what they all were doing. So I guess we'll see what happens at the special session. They need to do this month. I think notices went sent out to state employees if they didn't, for layoffs, which is required by state law, so if they don't get a special session done or a budget approved by the end of the month. The county reports, when you listen to the county reports, it's very interesting to see what other counties are going through, and it's also amazing how much similar the problems are, so we're not only the county having the same situation, deal with problems that they're also dealing with as well. There's a discussion, Goodhue County, on the snowmobile trail thing with the the LUP license requirement, or contract requirement with the state DOT. Goodhue ended up revising that a little bit, and I believe, Brian, you said you got a copy of that? They revised it and they only approved it for 2 years. MCIT will still not back them if there's a situation arises on liability. But they did that for 2 years until we can find a better fix. It was suggested that we have a meeting with state officials and the state legislature, you know, somebody from the House, somebody from the Senate in this district here to look into this and try to figure out what's going on and why is this all being changed. So I guess more to come on that. I know, Brian, you said you were gonna look at that and maybe bring it forward to have us consider maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that was discussed. Cindy was also there. She could have her add more to it, but overall, it was a pretty good meeting. This Thursday I have an extension meeting. I guess that's all I have right now. Commissioner Wright, would you?
Once again, Association of Minnesota Counties is AMC. Just for clarification, and District 9 has numerous counties that are different in population, but like Commissioner Johnson said, that it's amazing how much we can learn from having those gatherings every year or quarterly to connect with the different people that are having some of the same issues and resolving some of the same problems that we have within the county. So that was very good. It's also good that AMC provides us with an update legislatively because it is very in-depth. You know, when they talk about the changes and also what is concerning for us as far as any additional or lack of revenue or additional payments that we're going to have to make as a county because of state and federal budget cuts. So I found, yeah, that was very interesting. Good to get together and talk about that and get some information. Let's see, also, we had a community health group meeting last week with Fillmore County. So that's always, once again, good to get some updates and talk about our partnership within both of those areas and within the county, within the two counties. I also had a Celco board meeting, which we talked about, how their new systems are working within area libraries, and that seems to be going well and supported. Once again, they have budget cuts, so several of us have written letters to try to prevent further cuts within their budget, within public library systems. And that's probably all I had to report today.
Commissioner Zender?
I got a bill from the SMECB, Southeast Minnesota Emergency Communications Board. It's the fiscal aid, we talked about this already. The fiscal agent assessment administrative fees from January 1st through June 30th. So I don't know who to give this to. I'll give that to you. It's $1,570. It's part of our communications that part of the area. Homestead County decided that Judy, who works for Homestead County, has got to get paid from the rest of us because they're paying for her to do all the work for ECB and the RAC. And so it was agreed upon, and I had talked to you guys about this before, that this bill was coming. It's a possibility that it won't be that much for the second half of the year because of some grant stuff that they're working on. So we have that meeting coming up next week on the 9th in Rochester again, so we'll hear more about that and the geomapping that they're now starting to roll out. There's a $7 million grant that we're working on through the ECB and the RAC to map inside of our schools, and that's what we're starting with. So I did explain some of that prior to that. Basically what that is it'll allow dispatch to almost have not a video, but it puts when they call and say, we have a cardiac issue in room 125 of the high school, dispatch will have a map of exactly where that's at. It'll just automatically populate for them, eliminating searching, so on and so forth. And it works for medical, emergencies, active shooter, it could be anything. And they can map it right down to the 5-yard line of the football field, say that a kid got hurt, they're on the 5-yard line, it'll show the 5-yard line.
Good.
So it's a huge statewide initiative when we're working with a couple of the metro counties, which will allow us, they're not gonna get more than we are. It's equally spread out. So we'll learn a lot more about it next Monday, so I'll give her that bill. And I got nothing else.
Okay.
Oh, will we have a CJC, CJRXP, whatever we're gonna call it now? We're having one of those meetings here shortly.
Okay.
So,
Yes, we will.
Commissioner Schull?
Just a few things. I was gonna bring up, we all met out at the Able Building. And be nice to stay on top of the needs and wants of what we're gonna look at or not do there, so. Had a few people that must have seen something in the media that we were there that were questioning what we were up to. So just something to stay on top of, I guess. And then myself and Eric met after our meeting in Mabel down in Brownsville with Brian and the mayor from Brownsville and the city clerk, and looking at the options of the County 3 reconstruct coming up down the road. And I think they've got a lot of planning work to do there. Brownsville's very concerned about losing any of their business accesses. That's very important to them, and all 3 of the designs had flaws that they weren't real agitatiously, looking forward to,
Yeah,
so.
there's three options there that they were considering. One of them was a roundabout, but
Correct, yeah, they didn't like that idea.
it didn't like the roundabout idea.
I know they're trying to get the safety of the slowing the traffic down in the driveway or highway entrances, but, they're also looking at the city's aspect of trying to preserve the river station and their small business districts. So
Access, yep.
So that's the goal? That's why they're looking at that? for
Yeah,
those
they're,
reasons?
I think they're gonna go back to a little more planning, Brian, is that the next step?
Yeah, we're trying to solve the issue with the skew on Highway 3.
Okay.
All impacting or with minimal impact
Sure.
on businesses. So tough balance on how to get that skew without negative businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem is people come off the state highway there and they come into County 3 and it's coming in pretty hot.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, yeah. Comes around the corner there.
And so they
Yeah.
wanna slow traffic down and get them, have a 90-degree approach there, so people have to make a turn and look both ways.
Yeah, and pulling out of there the way that it is lined up now is difficult with the speed of Highway 26 traffic through there in general, so.
And
A
then,
lot more to come there.
yep, and then access to the housing down across the highway there too.
Next week, we have looks like a pretty full agenda Polly on the Parks Committee. We have that on Monday coming up, so 1:30. And then I just was gonna touch a little bit on the UTV ordinance. We may have a few people coming to that because there's a few people kind of wondering needs and wants and why we're doing it. So there may be some people coming with questions.
I'm hoping that Sheriff Swedberg would be there for,
Recommend that he probably.
They
be
recommended he would
requested.
be here.
right, to be able to answer the questions that he has, that people have.
Some of the other counties yesterday were talking just about that as well as their policies and some, if they've had an ordinance previously, sometimes they need to take a look at changing that ordinance because of what's working and what's not working. So a list of pros and cons might be a good idea.
Right, and that was one of the suggestions I was gonna have. Meeting on that is maybe look at pros versus cons before we just rush into taking someone else's ordinance.
Right. Or if it's necessary.
I think it should be made clear too, because I get a lot of people saying, well, you guys are just looking for another source of revenue. Well, that's not,
Heard that as well.
that is not what we're trying to do here. Yeah,
There's
that's
there's
definitely.
concerns, so.
Yep, yep.
So I just wanted to touch briefly on that without getting into a full debate, and that's about all I have.
Okay. Anything else from anybody?
I have one other thing to ask Brian. Brian, on the County 326 project that you guys were at there, has the state had any input?
Yes, so, about 80% of the funding is state funding, so MinDOT we've had several meetings with dozens of people from MinDOT in on it. So they are kind of big driver in what's happening on that design.
And
This
if,
is the final say, Brian.
Ultimately, the city, the county, and MinDOT all
my question is on MinDOT, is from my everyday workings with highway stuff, are they 100% against slowing the traffic down going through the city of Brownsville?
No.
Okay.
The one option is a roundabout, which automatically slows people down. Trunk highway would be going.
Minus that debacle.
Are they 100% against slowing down the speed limit if there's just a regular city street effect that's gonna happen? I think
That's kind of what I figured. We don't want to slow the traffic down.
Has there been accidents, incidents, near misses at that location? Is that, okay?
There have been accidents at that intersection, yes.
Actually, I think you had study numbers on that, didn't you?
Okay.
Yeah, we've looked at numbers, there
Yeah.
hasn't been any fatal crashes there.
Okay,
Well, there's been
I assume-
some recent ones, I believe, wasn't there? Somebody came in a little hot and ended up in the park there.
okay.
Does happen also.
Yeah, Stony Brook isn't that the? Stonebrook, not Stony Brook. Stonebrook was the engineer that may come up with those designs. So this is something we've been working on for a couple, 3 years. And, so
It's
that's,
just a tough intersection.
yeah,
There's not an easy fix to that.
and you're limited by space there too with the railroad on the other side,
And the river station right there on it.
right?
It's just, it's
And they're limited space there too, so,
100%.
all right.
Got nothing else.
Do they have a timeline? Do they have a timeline on that?
So it's near the very end, so the original proposal was to have, essentially you could see 3 options to about like a 30% plan. And the goal is to get like your one main option you want to see. It's gonna probably be another 2-3 years worth of design.
Oh, wow.
Funding and stuff and construction beyond that. So we're probably talking funding the 5+ years out there.
Amazing how long that takes.
Any closing public comment? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.